Hello, my lovely students. You're welcome to today's class. For today, we'll be treating Module 6. Module 6 is on the topic Linguistics and Communication, examining the science of language. Linguistics and Communication, examining the science of language. We do today is Ebele Anajemba from the Department of Linguistics, Faculty of Arts. Not a particular thing. We usually use language to unravel everything that has to do with our social life. We live in a society, in the midst of others, to interact at the office, at school, in the marketplace, in the family, anywhere you find yourself. To be able to interact with others, we make use of what? Language. There is a notable linguist by name Noam Chomsky. He attributed the use of language to a natural endowment. By this, he said that the ability to use language is innate. It is not something that we do by ourselves. It is a natural gift. It is from the Creator himself. He deposited it into man. That is why we are able to use language and nothing more. Therefore, according to him, when children are born, they are exposed to any living language whatsoever. It could be Igbo, it could be Yoruba, it could be Hausa, it could be French, it could be English, it could be Chinese, no matter the language it is. Children can do what? Acquire it, because there is a natural device that has been imputed into man. That natural device that makes it able for humans to acquire language is what he calls language acquisition device. Language acquisition device, LAD for short. According to him also, there is what we call the universal grammar. Universal grammar helps us to explain why all languages of the world abide by grammar rules. Igbo has its own grammar rules. Yoruba has its own grammar rules. English has its own grammar rules. So when someone is using any of these mentioned languages and deviates from the rules, anyone that is competent in the use of these languages will bat the eyebrow and will be like, why? You are not using this grammar correctly. Because the person knows the rules governing their language, so any deviation from the norm produces something that is ungrammatical. And these are the rules that these children at birth grows up to learn intuitively, meaning they don't have to enter any particular class to learn the rules of the language that they are exposed to. Because of the language acquisition device in them, they are able to do what? Learn the rules of this language naturally. So, human language on its own is organized because it is made up of a patterned system of sound signals. We say patterned, organized, patterned, system. Patterned what? System of sound signals. It's not just any kind of sound. Okay? It is not just any set of sounds at all, or words or phrases or sentences, but systematically encoded word structures. The words, they have system in which they are arranged. The phrases also follow a particular pattern. The sentences equally follow another pattern. That is why if anybody says, I am competent in this language, if you are, all you need to do is ask the person to express him or herself. If the person abides by the rules of that particular language, then it means the person really knows how to use that particular language. But if the person does not conform to the rules, then you know that the person is not what? Competent. And so we say that these properties are universal, no matter the locality, no matter the tribe, the religion or race. It does not have any part to play in it. Therefore, for communicative purposes, we say that it must be a two-way channel thing. In essence, two people must be involved in the communication process. We need to have the sender, whom we equally refer to as the speaker, and then the receiver. Whenever you pass an information, it is intended for a particular people, an audience, an addressee, receiver, or hearer. So, for communication to be balanced, we need to have it two-way channel. Therefore, to ensure effective communication, the receiver must understand the language of the sender. If you use an unfamiliar language and you want to pass an instruction to another, that information will never be passed across. Because if the hearer does not understand the same language code you are using, you are not passing any information. So it is important that language sharing must be done between the sender and the hearer, because the hearer has to pass through the mental process of formulating using the proper systematic codes. Now, there are various types of communication. Various types of what? Communication. We have the verbal communication. Like you're hearing me now. Because I'm using verbal codes. Because I'm using words that you understand. Therefore, this particular module that I'm handling will pass the information across. But if you don't understand the verbal coding I'm using, that means the communication will not be properly passed on because you don't understand anything. Okay? There is also the non-verbal communication. This involves the use of sign, gestures, where you beckon someone with the use of your hands. You're asking the person to come. It is use of non-verbal communication. If you wink your eyes, if you blink your eyes at someone, you are face to face with the person. That one is passing on an information. If you nod your head, it is also a kind of what? Information. If you use your hand to signal stop at someone, it is also a kind of information. It's also a kind of communication, but non-verbal. Where you don't use words to express what you say, they are called the non-verbal communication. We equally have the visual communication. Sometimes you see a playlet being visualized only without a sound. You look at the acting, you're able to follow the storyline to the end. That is a kind of visual word communication. You use your eyes to look at what is being said. You understand it. It's a kind of visual coding. Finally, we have the written communication. The novels you read is a kind of visual communication, because the writer at that point in time is not with you, but you're able to follow the storyline to understand whatever the writer is trying to say. That is what? Written communication. Most of the textbooks you use, in the absence of the lecturer, you're able to follow the topics chapter by chapter. Is a kind of what? Written communication. Most times you go on the internet to surf, to search for information. You read it. It's visual as well as what? Written, because in as much as you're seeing it, you're equally reading it. So these are different types of what? Communication. Now, how does human language differ from animal language? Because we know that, yes, animals do communicate, but in their own different way. They don't use systematic coding as we use. Why do we say that they don't? Because there are some attributes of human language which is not in any way likened to what is obtainable for the animals. For instance, human language is creative. Human language has creative linguistic what? Capacity. Meaning that we can generate new systems, new systematic coding on daily basis. There were words that never existed 10 years ago, but now they are obtainable because of the advancement we have today in industries, in the global world, in technology, and so on and so forth. And a child that is just born today that learns how to use a particular language can create a sentence that none has ever heard before. That is creative ability of humans to use language. We say equally that human language has systematic symbols. systematic what? Symbols. That is why we have the letters of the alphabet for any language at all. Okay? When we combine different sounds, we make up words, which in turn are combined to give phrases and give sentences. These are all systematic. For every letter, there is a sound attached to it, which can be combined with another sound to make a word. So these are systematic what? Symbols. And we say that animals cannot in any way do this. Human language, on the other hand, is not genetically transmitted. By this we mean that there is no particular sound that you attach to human language. The animals have genetic transmitted language in the sense that a cow meows. In the same way a mother cat meows, that's the way a kitten meows. In the same way an oxen, a bull moos, that's the same way a calf would do. Okay? But it is not the same with what? Humans. Humans have their languages developed on their own. For instance, that Igbo parents have a child today does not limit that child to speaking Igbo alone. Because the parents are limited to the use of Igbo language does not mean that that child will speak only Igbo. There is even a possibility that that child might not be able to speak Igbo in her life, because if she's not exposed to the use of Igbo, there's no way she can know how to speak Igbo. If you take that child away and put her in an environment where only Hausa is used, or where only Spanish is spoken, or where only German is used on day-to-day basis, that child ends up acquiring that language that he or she has been exposed to. Therefore, we say that human language is not genetically transmitted. Human language has dual power, attribute of duality, meaning that a letter has a sound attached to it. A letter has a sound, and these sounds are combined together to make a word. Human language has the attribute of displacement. This means that someone can discuss about a particular concept that is not immediately present. We can be here and discuss about things happening in London, in Lagos, in Onitsha, in Ekoka, in the bank, inside school, while we're not there. Okay? So we have the ability to discuss about things that are not immediately present. Human language as well is arbitrary, meaning that you can use some sounds to represent something that does not have anything to link to it. For instance, the word pen cannot in any way be likened to PEN or the object it represents. It's just that we use that arbitrary coding for that particular object which we say it stands for. Human language equally is vocal. We can express it with sounds coming from the lungs, which now is pushed out through the mouth. We equally say that human languages do what? Changes. Human languages change. The kind of Igbo grammar we use today wasn't the type that was being used 100 years ago. It changes because of the society and the environment we find ourselves. As there is technological advancement, some sounds, some words drop off, some words become obsolete, while others are introduced into the language. Okay, these are some of the differences we have between animal communication and human language. So, from this, we can say that some of the functions of language is for what? Communicative what? Purposes. We use it to pass information from one person to another. We equally use it to interpret. Interpretative what? Interpretive function. When something is being showcased or showed, we can use language to explain what is happening. We can use it to express what we have, the ideas we have within us, to express our feelings, to express what we know about a particular thing. Language can equally be personalized. How I see something is not the way Mr. B says it, it's not the way Miss C says it. So language can be what? Personalized. Now, we now want to discuss linguistics. We've talked about what language is as it is used in communication. Now, we say language and communication, examining the science of language, which is linguistics. Okay? Linguistics and communication, examining the science of language. Now, what is linguistics? Linguistics is a scientific study of human language. Scientific study of what? Languages. By this, we apply scientific method to conduct formal studies of languages across over 6,000 world languages. There are more than 6,000 languages all over the world, in accordance to HANA 2011. And to do this effectively, there are 3 fundamental stages that will pass any language through. Suppose we want to study it. First of all, we observe data that we collect from a set of from the language. We collect data in form of words, spoken words or written words. Then from the data we've already collected, we observe it and describe what we feel is happening to the language. Having described it, we now have to base that our description on what is generally accepted all over the world in human languages. We don't just come up with something new. Look at what is happening in languages and describe what we feel is particular from the data we've collected from that language. Based on that, we draw conclusion based on the universal properties of human language. It must be based on what is already obtained. We draw our conclusions on that. Now, as it stands, linguistics has different branches. Linguistics has different branches. It can be carried out, linguistic study can be carried out in 6 different levels. One can study the phonemes of a language. He can equally decide to study the morphemes, or the words, or the phrases, or the clauses, or sentences in the sentence. So you can carry out the study on these different levels. And these levels have different branches of linguistics that study them. If we are interested in the phonemes, that means we are studying the sounds. Then we are engaging in the branch of linguistics that is called phonetics and phonology. You want to study a language now. For instance, you want to study Igbo. For instance, you want to study the type of Igbo that Oka people speak. Then you are engaging yourself in phonetics and phonology. If you want to study the combination of the words, how are words formed? How are words formed in that language? You are engaging yourself in morphology. If you want to study the meanings which these words have, or which the use has, the words on their own have, you are studying what we call semantics. If you now want to study on how the words are combined to come up with the sentences we have in this sentence, we talk about syntax. Now, if you're so much concerned about how these words are used in the context in which they are used, then you go down to the branch of pragmatics. So these are the different branches of linguistics. Now, linguistics is applied all over the world. There are different global applications of linguistics. We find this in the areas of natural language processing. There we see computer science we see linguistics interacting with computer science in natural language processing, as well as in artificial intelligence. Today, there is a concept of trying to reduce human workforce. And in order to do that, you must have to program them using some words which the application has to work with in order to give out the output you want. artificial intelligence. We talk about the application of linguistics in the health sector, clinical linguistics, applying the study of the knowledge of linguistics to medical, people that have speech defects and speech malfunctioning. That will take us to the area of clinical linguistics and speech therapy. Someone that is a stammerer can be made to have a particular speech pattern in which his speech flows, so that he will overcome the mannerism of stammering. Is under speech therapy that will handle that. Translation and interpreting is another area where linguistics is playing a very important part. Around us today, we have a lot of Chinese that has their company spread all over. And we have our students, people that have finished from Confucius Institute, engaged in their services. Now, what do? They go doing what? Translating and interpreting for them. They serve as middlemen between the Chinese and their counterparts over here in Nigeria. So that is about translation and interpreting. We also have the forensic linguistics. They help the security personnel to track down criminals through the use of audio signals. We also have language and communication technology. That one is common everywhere. We find linguists in the use of Python and R and all the rest. Now, we move forward to basic speech production. How do we actually speak? Because linguists study the way sounds are produced. These sounds that are produced, this speech that we make, the communication, they are made up of sound signals. How does it actually generate? How do we speak? How does it come about? There are some speech organs in the body. They on their own have primary function, but their secondary function is what? Production of speech. How does it originate? Starting from the lungs. The lungs, the air is pushed out from the lungs. These lungs, they move to our esophagus through the larynx. Through this larynx, the air passes through the glottis, epiglottis. Now, the epiglottis now pushes the air through the pharynx. The pharynx gets to the uvula. Now, the air passes through the uvula. Now, at this stage, it now has to take either the nasal cavity or the oral cavity, depending on the type of sound to be produced. If it is sounds that pass through the nose, now it goes through the oral nasal cavity. If it is through the mouth, it comes through the oral cavity. Now, at the oral cavity, we also have the soft palate and the hard palate. Then we have the tongue, we have the alveolar ridge, the upper lip, the lower lip, and the teeth equally. They also form part of the speech organs. Okay? Now, some sounds we produce are voiced. They come out louder than the others. Some are what? Voiceless. Okay? If in the process of the production of the sound, the vocal cords are closed, the air has to force them out, it comes out with voice. So we call those ones the voice sound. But if during the production of these sounds, the vocal cords are open, the air moves smoothly out, it comes out with voiceless sounds. For instance, in the production of the letter B, its sound is voiced, meaning that the vocal cords are usually closed, therefore the air has to be pushed out, and so making voice sound. But if you produce something like P, it's the air just moves very freely. Okay? It moves very freely. So all these organs, they interact together, they come together in order to produce the sounds we hear. So in the process of producing those sounds, we have the initiation, that is where the sound starts from the lungs, passing through the pharynx, and getting to the epiglottis. It gives the phonation, that is the voice, whether it's going to be voice or voiceless. Then coming to the oral nasal, it has to pass through either the nose or through the vocal side. And then the articulation, where the tongue touches either the hard palate or the alveolar ridge or the teeth or the lips. These are the four basic processes that are involved in what? Speech production. And so, without this, you have an idea of what is studied under linguistics as a course. Therefore, when you meet someone tomorrow on the way and you inquire from the student the course he or she is studying, and the person says, I'm studying linguistics, you now have an idea of what the person is studying, because it is a general notion in the society we live that whenever you say you're studying linguistics, people tend to ask you, how many languages can you speak? Now, at this point, I've been able to let you understand what linguistics is all about. So you don't have to ask anybody, how many languages do you speak? If the person says, I am studying what? Linguistics. You already know, okay? And so we have the internalized language and we have the expressed language. The internalized language are the rules that we have inside of us. The rules of the language that we have deposited inside of us at birth, which is made possible by language acquisition device. And then we have the word externalized language. The externalized language now comes in the form of the different languages we have today, like we have English, Igbo, German, Spanish, Kiswahili, Portuguese, Chinese, name them, all the languages in the world that you have. These are what we call externalized languages. That is the E language. However, the device that makes it possible is the internalized language, the I language that we have inside of us, which is the language acquisition device. So, to wrap up this particular module, we say that linguistics is the scientific study of language. It is very vital in the communication process of any speech community. Very, very vital. We equally made mention of the fact that humans are endowed with the innate ability to learn languages, which is the I language. And then the application of this I language is applied in what we now call the externalized languages. The languages which we speak are made up of systematic code, and they are universal, irrespective of tribe, religion, locality, and otherwise. For effective communication, the receiver and the sender must be able to process the language that is being used. Now, we equally talked about the application of linguistics in the different areas where they are obtainable today. Okay? And so, with this, we have already come to the end of this lecture. Thank you, my wonderful students, for listening. It's been a good day. Thank you very much.